Hello. So I want to talk about how I think we are supposed to live our lives as far as just sexuality goes. And I think that this will explain a lot of the confusion that comes around in our society when it comes to sexuality. So, the first thing I want to address as to how I think we are supposed to live our lives is that I think that we were actually meant to have kids at a younger age than we really do. I think we are meant to have kids around like 18 or 19. And I think that it was supposed to be easier to have kids around 18 or 19 because another thing, a way in which I think we're supposed to live our lives is because I think we are meant to be adults around 15 or 16. And so we have those years in which I think we are meant to have those years in which we learn how to be an adult, and then we become an adult, and then we get married, and then we have kids around that age. But then you're thinking, wait, there's this huge gap. What about school? Well, I think that we weren't supposed to do so much school. And I think also that that homeschooling should be more of a thing. I also think that schooling should be more about, well, just as much about developing your character and basic practical skills on like sewing, cooking, budgeting, as it is about these cognitive functions when it comes to math, science, social studies, and stuff, and remembering all of that kind of stuff. So, and I think developing those characters helps you developing your character, developing those practical skills helps you be an adult faster. So I think that's more so how we are supposed to live our lives. And I think if we live our lives more and so in that way, then it's easier for us to wait until marriage to have sex. And so I do think that we are meant to only have sex within marriage because it's such an emotional thing. It's what adds so much drama to all these movies and TV shows, and why it's in all of it nowadays, because whether you want to admit it or not, it's not just a casual thing. Just because it's done casually doesn't make it casual. It's a very sacred emotional thing, and I think that there's a reason why so many of us girls, the first couple of times we have sex, I think there's a reason as to why we feel so much shame after those encounters. Is because it's God telling us that we were supposed to save it for someone who is going to be there for us for the rest of their lives, who is going to be there for us in sickness or in health, better for worse, and who would make that vow to us and to God Himself. And we should only be that vulnerable around unless for someone who made that kind of vow. And so that's I think we're supposed to have sex only within marriage. And I think that if we do, that will help so much mental illnesses that go around, from depression to anxiety. And some of these girls, they sleep around, and they think that their anxiety is just because of a mental chemical imbalance. And yeah, I'm not going to deny that there's a chemical imbalance, but it's because of the root of something much deeper. And there sometimes our thoughts and the way we live our lives spiritually can literally and physically make us sick, because we are a body and a soul, whether or not we want to admit it. That's what we are. That's why we're not just chemicals. We're not just a clump of cells. From the time that we are conceived in our mother's womb, we have a soul. So I also think that we should consider the fact that there are demons in this universe that influence society. They influence us to be greedy, to wait until we have all this money and we achieve all this success. And they have us value those as opposed to relationships. And they take advantage of us through the openings we give them in our lives, whether it's through the movies we watch, whether it's through the porn we watch, whether it's through our boyfriends, whether it's through our girlfriends. And it makes it so much easier it makes it so much easier for us to have sex before marriage, with not in the confines of marriage. And that is why I don't judge anyone who has sex outside of marriage. I don't necessarily think that it's exactly right. I'm not going to judge your character, because it is so hard nowadays to wait until marriage to have sex. And I don't think God wanted it for us to be this hard. I think He made us to have, kids at a younger age, for us to not be coddled, for us to not let demons influence us so much. And so I think God, He wanted us to protect our hearts, and He wanted us to use our bodies with honor. And so that's why we feel the shame. We don't understand why we feel the shame. And so I also think that all of us as people, we were intended by God to be loyal, faithful, kind people. And so it wasn't so hard to choose a mate, because it wasn't supposed to be so hard to choose a mate, because any mate we choose should have been somebody with honor. But now it's so hard to choose a mate. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have felt kind of shame for being so picky. But then I realized, I don't really have much to work with. And I felt kind of shame, like I was being judgmental, but I realized I don't really have much to work with. So yeah, I also think that we weren't meant to live in this over-sexualized world. It gets really over-sexualized with all the media, the movies, the commercials, with porn being so popular, and with it just being a normal thing to have sex with outside of marriage. Because and I feel like, because things are over-sexualized now, we then think that because a woman loves being around women more and finds it more satisfying to being around a woman or a man, a lot of women may then think that must mean that they must be gay. They must be a lesbian. And I know that it's more complicated than that, but that's kind of where it starts. They start to feel this is more satisfaction around them. And that doesn't have to mean, that you're a lesbian. It doesn't have to mean anything sexual in the world. And not only do I think that we live in a world that's overly sexualized, I think we live in a world that's overly romanticized. And yes, romance and sex are not a bad thing, but all good things are bad things not used within their proper amount. And so, we're more quick to then fill the spiritual hole in our lives with romance and sex than we are with God. And so we romanticize our lives and fill that hole in our lives with more so romance. Sometimes, even if we're not sexual, maybe we might feel it more so with romance than we will with God. And I think all of those kind of warm, fuzzy feelings were more so meant to be directed towards God than the other person. And yes, of course, it's okay to be very affectionate towards your romantic partner. I'm just saying that it's very easy for things to get out of balance. And I feel like the over-romanticized culture is what leads to lust anyways, and that's what messes up so much order within our society, and that's what causes heartbreak, and families to be torn apart, and people to lose their jobs because of like bad decisions they make, and it causes like just these bad chain reactions. And so basically, those are the ways I think we are supposed to live our lives. I think we are supposed to have kids younger. I think we are supposed to become adults at a younger age. I think that there are demons that influence our society. I think that God was very intentional with every decision He made in regards to sex.